Hi, everybody. Anthony Burrows here for Life and Finances with Sacrifice and Service. Now, today I want to talk about something that I consider the second single most important thing in the life of any individual. And you know what that is? It's retirement. The first item, actually, in my opinion, is our soul salvation and our personal relationship with Jesus. Now, talking about that relationship, the Bible says there's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, time to root it up what is planted, time to kill, time to heal, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to build, and a time to break down. So there's always a season, and depending on where you are in life, is a season. Now, retirement. The moment you walk out of your mommy and your daddy home or whichever home you're living in, retirement preparation should begin. So I like to say the persons in their 20s, if you're in your 20s, that's when you really start out on your own, really, in the truest sense. Most people start out really on their own. The first thing you have to start doing is pursuing financial literacy / financial knowledge. You got to learn about money, what money is meant to do, what money can do for you and how it can work for you. So the first thing you go ahead and do is you open up two accounts, a savings account at a bank, because you want to move all your transactions, and then a savings account with probably one of the local credit unions. Now, try and find one of those credit unions just right now at least above 3.5%, because since COVID, they've been coming down. The banks, they are under 1%. So that's what you're going to look at. The next step you will take is purchasing life insurance. Even though you're only in your 20s, so the first thing, get those two savings account, then the life insurance. And with the life insurance, if you don't have no children or nothing out there, and hopefully in your 20s you won't without being married, because especially as a woman, it's a good way to end up living in poverty. And for guys, it's a good way to hold you back from becoming your best. But of course, if it's the situation, you can still fly and plan, but you can have a weight on your foot holding you down a little bit. So in this instance, so get that life insurance, and the purpose of the life insurance is so that when you get older in life and you start investing in a business or you're purchasing a home, you have this backup here as collateral, plus as something to start you on your way. And you could, in your 20s, you could get $250,000, $300,000 worth of life insurance at pretty cheap rate, less than probably $100 in your 20s, but it might be just over $100. So that's $100 a month is what I'm thinking. The next item is then think of a business that you want to do. Even if you haven't put the stuff down on paper, get a business license for it. Go ahead, get a business license. Have it listed as a home business so you could just get the license and then work towards that. Now, if you're in your 30s, you should have at least 1 year's salary saved. I know that sounds ridiculous, but this for a 30-year-old who might be doing it the right way. If you are just now starting in your 30s, catching your senses in terms of your money, start a serious saving program. Then the next item to look at in your 30s is purchasing land and also purchasing a home. These are two different pieces of property I'm talking about. You're looking at purchasing land and then you're purchasing a home. Those are two different things. And another item in your 30s is a good time to get married, because two incomes go much further and you'd get the financial freedom a lot quicker. But of course, don't get married just for that. Make sure you already have the woman or the man lined up, and they're ready. And then another item in your 30s is to develop a skill, some kind of skill that you can use to generate income. So these are kind of things that you have to look at. And the thing about retirement, you'll usually live the type of retirement that you end up living is usually a reflection of the life you live coming up. So if you squandered money, when you get to retirement, you're going to be in a hard luck situation. If you handled money properly, then you'll be in a good situation when you retire. Now, you got bad things that's happened to good people, right? We know that. So in some situations, you got persons who have done all the right things, but just had some bad breaks. And the thing is now, so while you are leaving home, you start your preparation for retirement. Now, we know things get in the way because you got a life to live. And most people spend many years majoring, I call it, in minor things. But of course, you're usually going to say, hey, you got to find a home in which to live, right? Then you have to look at the situation, oh, got to put these children through school. Then the size of the home and the type of home that you want to live, all these can add up on it. Then you want to know, it's like, hey, what profession will I pursue? Then you're saying, then you have to buy a car for as transportation, and next to your home, most people, the automobile is their next biggest purchase. And you're looking for jobs, spending time. Then you're trying to start a business, and you're building that family and trying to provide for that family. And the thing is, those are honorable pursuits on your road to retirement. But you have to begin that preparation right here, right now. Now, if you're a person with 5 or less years to go with retirement, you are in a good position. Get 2 sheets of paper. On one of them, you're going to put those assets, right? On the next sheet, you're going to put liabilities. Now, assets, what are they? Assets, in real talk here now, that's anything you own that you consider to be of value. And then, of course, now, other people have to consider of value too, that you can sell it, give it, do whatever, and in return, you get monies so that you're able to either pay off some kind of debt or other financial commitment. And the thing is, assets is something that you can use to establish your legacy. And the overall thing is that when you think of asset, it's anything that you can turn into cash. Now, when you think of assets, I can tell you what's not an asset. A car, them big fancy fridge. I wouldn't talk about them $1,300 phone, 60-inch television, pack of clothes, your closet, 6 and 7 closet in your house full of clothes, right? They have fancy furniture, unless they're real antiques, and the market for that is very small. Those vacations that you're taking, they may have their value in terms of building your knowledge base and all of that sort of thing, and seeking out opportunities for businesses and what have you. So the vacation may not be a total liability. Now the credit cards, unless you have a sizable credit and you can use it to grow your business or start a business and all of that. But you know, banks normally give you a credit card just enough to get you to maybe do some little consumer stuff, but nothing that could set you free. And then they'll let it crawl a little bit, add $100 here as your credit limit and this and that. But don't fall in the trap with those credit cards. And then remember when we're saying, now when you're looking at what's an asset, that rainy day emergency account, that's an asset. Your house, that's an asset. In some developed countries, some people may say it's not. But in the Bahamas context, house and land is an asset, because foreigners buying up all the land because we have allowed it through the persons we have put into Parliament. That International Landholding Property Act, that's the one that's killing us. That has driven the cost of living through the roof. But anyhow, let's go back to, so Bahamians own land wherever you can, because we are being locked out from owning land. So houses, apartments, businesses, your emergency account, that fixed deposit, that's an asset. Life insurance, that's an asset. If you've written a book or some songs, you get them copyright, that's an asset. So you have an idea what liability is an asset. And liability, again, that's anything that puts you on the hook where you have to be financially responsible or obligated to covering something. So that's a liability. And some liabilities, very few, are progressive. And that's like when you have your business going and then you maybe borrow some money to propel it and take it to the next level. You might need equipment, different training, all of those sort of stuff. And nowadays they're talking about, far as saying insurance, when you have they're now looking at income loss insurance. You know, like when persons get laid off their job, you have insurance, then you collect a certain amount every week, every month, up that. So that's a good insurance to start looking at, especially with the pandemic and then the economic downturn. Now, after you would have established your assets and your liabilities, now you're going to look at how you can deal with those liabilities and what you're going to do with the assets. So therefore, you're going to lay out a 1-year plan, 3-year plan, and your 5-year plan. That's how you're going to look at in terms of, hey, how you're going to deal with those liabilities. And then another portion, remember there's some people who like in their 5 or 10 years out, draw up a will. And then get in conversation with whoever's going to be the executor of that will, whoever you choose, maybe one of your responsible children or a good friend or whatever you, make it clear for a power of attorney. Now here's what happened. A power of attorney is simply that if something happened to you, somebody assumes your responsibility in terms of making decisions for you. So you get in a car accident, or you slip on a banana peel and hit your head. Anything that may have happened that leave you a little incapacitated, that you can't function, you have somebody there knowing what your will and desires are, and they'll make those decisions for you, but you have to draw up a will. Also declaring the power of attorney, and I always like to say, write letters to those family members that are in your will and those who are not in your will. So when you, at your demise, they pass it out and they can read it and you can say whatever to them. Then of course, you go by NIB and follow up on how current your NIB contributions are, because I've known people personally whose company was taking out national insurance. When they got sick or something happened and they couldn't work for maybe a week or two, gone to national insurance company to find out no money was being sent. So you have to follow up on that to make sure, even if you're working for government entity, quasi entity, private sector, who don't mind how big the companies are, sometimes mistakes and things happen, you go and you follow up on those contributions. Then you start looking at getting into the NHI, the National Health Insurance Plan. Well, in reality, that's a farce, and I would call it, right? Because it only covers basically you go to doctor's visits, they listen to your heart, tell you say, open your mouth, shine the light in your eyes, that sort of thing. It doesn't cover any, and it covers medicine. Other than that, it doesn't cover anything real tangible if you need a surgery and all of that. This is why we have to prepare the next generation. Let's teach them. Prepare them so that we could have this National Health Insurance Board come up. Just how we have NIB, we need an NHIB, because one of the pillars of majority rule and independence was getting that NIB there, so that Bahamians in their twilight years could have something to fall back and look on. Think of the many generations, the many and numerous generations that have given blood, sweat, and tears. This thing started from Pompey. It started from Pompey's rebellion. Even though he was rebelling for what was happening with his trying to sell off family and send them to different islands, but this is where this notion started, where we as Bahamians could have a better life in our older years. So we got to get this notion. Let's get the National Health Insurance Board, where, of course, nothing's free. Just how we pay into national insurance, we will pay into the National Health Insurance Board, and then therefore we can go forward. See, you have foreigners living here will be telling us, hey, Bahamians, y'all ain't good enough to have no National Health Insurance plan. But you know what? When they get sick, they jump on the plane, they go back to New Zealand, they go back to Australia, they go back to England, they go back to Canada. And what do? Because there they get free health insurance, and so they go back there, get their surgery, get their medicine, get all of that, then maybe make their way back here. So what we have to do now, stop spitting on things that's Bahamian and shining up the things that's foreign. Let's do something for ourselves. National Health Insurance Board, that has to come. And we need that sooner rather than later. So what I'm saying now, so with that being said, and here you are 5, 10 years away from retirement. You may even be 3 years away from retirement a year. But you know what? Your biggest asset, we get back to that, is your health, right? Your health. You agree with me? I think you do. Your biggest asset is your health. Now, the average Bahamian that's 45 and older, it is said that at least 60% of Bahamians 45 years and older have some kind of chronic ailment. Can you imagine that? 45 years old and you're running around, everybody with chronic, be it hypertension, diabetes. But somebody is, in some situations, realizing that we came across in the bottom of the boat in the middle passage. So that put us to a proclivity and propensity to be able to, I guess, to have to suffer more from the various ailments, but because of the stress and duress of being in the bottom of the boat. But with that said, at 45, 60%. Then when you're at 55, we are looking closer to 70%. When you get to 70, about 85% of Bahamians, I guess this one is worldwide, have some kind of chronic ailment. So remember, the key things in these are 4 items for your asset, which is your biggest asset, your health. The first item is sleep. Oh man, you got to get that sleep. Find a way, whatever works for you, a dark room, maybe a cup of tea, whatever. Of course, stay away from pharmaceutical chemicals for sleep, because those things tend to, next thing you know, you're jumping off a bridge and all kinds of things. You're in a state of depression. But that's only me saying that. So what I'm saying though, sleep. Then after sleep, it's the food that we eat. Try and have it balanced. Yes, if you don't have a meat, have a meat. But then also you have a carb, also have a grain, and then also have some kind of vegetable. Plenty water, and I say drink your water at least 15 minutes before you eat, and probably half an hour or so after you eat if you want to. But those are things to look at. So it's your sleep, it's your food. Then the next item is physical activity. And with the physical activity, out there you're in a situation where you're outside in the sun, whether it's walking, whether it's doing some gardening, whatever it is. And then usually I suggest for older persons, if you're like 50 and older, I would suggest that you find a way to do some weightlifting, some kind of strength training, whether it's just push-ups or whatever but I would recommend that for as muscle retention and just keeping the overall health. And of course you mix that in with your walking. So we said it's 4, right? So it's the sleep, it's the food, it's the physical activity, and last but by no means least, it's the water. And all of these are ways to reboot your health. So you might be at a situation, let's say you're on some serious medication. You may be able to work your way down to just minimal amount. And who knows, in some cases, persons can get themselves off it. So don't just accept your condition. You can somehow rise above it or get yourself down to a very, very credible area. Now, as you're winding down and heading towards retirement, start to create a new budget. And a budget is simply plan for your financial future. And this is you telling your money where you want it to go. So you run things, not your money run you. You know what I'm saying? This is time to get the children off the payroll. Some of them, especially in the pandemic and the economic downturn, in some cases you may have to, throw them a little something. But in normal times, you got children out there who on work and they have other children and on and on. You got to say, hey, you're off my payroll. So that's one thing you scratch off that old budget. You start in your new budget, you don't bring that over. Now, if you have a physically or mentally challenged child, that's a different story. But remember, regular children, you cannot protect them all the days of your life, because when you go, then what? And this is the time now to start downsizing your life. So if you're in a 3,000 square foot house, for instance, or 5,000 square foot house, just you and your husband, you and your wife, you and your boyfriend, you and your girlfriend, or just maybe you. Say, hey, what can I do? You have the option of maybe selling the house and then moving to a much smaller house, or you can decide to, hey, put this house on rent and then move yourself to an apartment. And the thing is, living in an apartment, or just sell the house outright, and then you organize the money in some kind of trust fund, and you organize it as to how you want to deal with those who are going to be your beneficiaries after your demise. But when you're in a home, you got to have maintenance. So you got to paint, cut the grass, keep the trees off the roof, handle the plumbing, the electrical, all the different things that goes with the house. And then, of course, there's that annual insurance where you have to pay insurance in terms of covering for fire, water, hurricane, all of those sort of damages that may come. And that can be pretty expensive. So now if you're in an apartment, there's only that rent that you cover. When hurricane time coming, the landlord got to put the shutters up, right? Only thing you do if you're in an apartment is purchase content insurance. And of course, you get your national health insurance. You're following up, of course, with your NIB. But it's something to look at. And then the other item, when you own your home, as you're in this old ageist home that's too big, is that real property tax. Now, people say most of us haven't been ran down to pay it, but it's something that you must be mindful of, because eventually it's going to come due. Now, when retirement is actually here, that first Monday, many persons have a hard time adjusting to that very first week of not going to work. I can recall of 3 separate incidents I've heard of. One of them I know personally, where persons retired Friday and Monday morning they died. It's like, wow. Then I heard of other persons come put their suit and their clothes and everything, come back on the job that Monday. Of course, security had to escort them off. So you don't want that to be you. Maintain friendships. So if you're active in your church, that's a good way to stay in touch and have those friendships. That get active in some of these civic groups and organizations. Volunteer your time, maybe at soup kitchen, whatever. you can do. Do things that will get you around younger people and that will keep you stimulated. Of course, continue your reading, grabbing to your YouTube, doing all these different things that will keep your brain stimulated. And one thing I like to say is create a bucket list. And you know what? If you don't know what a bucket list is, go on Netflix and watch the movie Bucket List. I think it's Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicklaus. So it's a nice movie. I can't remember if Eddie Clayson was in it. Hopefully not. But in that instance, but I'm saying go and see that and get an idea of a bucket list. Or you can do like an uncle of mine. I know when he retired from the police force, he probably in his early 50s, right? Probably around 51, 52. Went back to school, right? Went back to school, got his degree, became a priest, worked for another 15 or years or so, then wrote a book. Then he retired, and now he's still working as a priest on his boyhood island. So remember, you don't retire from work. You are actually retiring to something. Don't just say, I run in here, because most people are in a state of anxiety when Monday morning they got to go to work. Most people despise the job they're on. That's just human beings. Human beings like security and to settle for less than the best. But that's just the way Satan has been able to control the planet. Very few people can swim above that and get out to the real fresh air and be able to maximize their dreams, their potentials. And the last thing I'd say to you during this time, commit your life to Jesus. Now, may the God of heaven and his Son, the Christ, bless and prosper you.